Glam readers, welcome to October Book Club. I'm so excited to talk about one of my favorite books of all time, Anne of Green Gables, and I hope you are just as excited to join us for a cozy fall book club. So I'm not going to answer the icebreaker because that just doesn't seem right since I picked all the titles, but look how cute my magic potion pumpkin tea is. I thought I would share that with you since I won't be saying which book I'm most excited to read in 2018. So those of you who have been reading along with us for a few years, and this is our fourth year of book club, which is crazy. Very exciting. I'm so excited that you guys have stuck with me this long and we're continuing to turn pages. It's like reading as a public service or something like that. So we always do a icebreaker for October, which is kind of like a teaser of what book are you most excited to read. And the book chatters have seen the list for 2018 and the stickers are being made right now. And we'll go through it. Of course, we'll go through, we'll do a big launch video just like we do every year and go through each of the titles. But for now, we're just going to do a teaser. So the book chatters won't say which month, they'll just say which book they're most excited about to read in 2018 and why. Before we get to the icebreaker, I wanted to introduce you to a new book chatter. So Katrina, our longtime MVP book chatter, is an original book chatter, just like Tabitha and Sarah. She had a change in schedule with work, so she's not going to be able to join us for the foreseeable future. So one of my very best friends from Denver, Margie, joined us, and she's going to be joining us for our live chats. She is a newlywed because she lives in Denver, and she was my favorite friend and still is to talk books with. She's a rock star reader, and yeah, Margie, do you want to say hello or anything? Put you on the spot?
Yes, sure. Sorry. Yeah, super excited.
Oh, I think you're on mute. Or no, I'm on mute. Just kidding. Ignore me. Who's excited about it?
Okay. Super excited to join in. This was the perfect month to step in. It gave me another excuse to watch the movies too. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to 2018. Always looking for good books to read. I have a little more time right now. So yeah, just excited to be here and be here with you guys.
Awesome. Sorry, I introduced you and then told you you were on mute when I was on. Amazing. Margie and I were in a book club together that she's still in Denver, and that is actually the book club that inspired the Paper Glam Book Club. I was like, I really want to do online book club, and I knew books are not as sexy. Obviously, I'm not doing it for to promote Paper Glam. If anything, people unsubscribe because they're like, gosh, too many book videos. But I just love reading, and I really want to share that love of reading because very few things in my life besides probably my faith in Jesus Christ have shaped who I am like reading has. So Margie's definitely someone who shares that with me, and kind of one of the first people that I could really talk books with. We could spend whole days talking books. So I'm really excited that she was willing to give us her Thursday nights. So without further ado, let's get to those teasers. Tabitha, what is your book? What title are you most excited to read?
Okay, so hi guys. I am excited about A Movable Feast, the classic Hemingway. And the reason I'm excited about that is because I've never read Hemingway. And of course, you hear so much about him, but I was like, yeah, definitely want to have that under my belt, and definitely a classic because I love classics. So that's what I'm excited to read this upcoming year.
Of course, I'm all about October, so I'm looking forward to Interview with the Vampire because I love all things spooky and anything about vampires, sparkly or not.
Hey, I am super excited about Stories I'd Tell in Bars. Lisa Marie got me hooked on this author, and I fell in love because I relate to her so well. And so I'm super excited to read her next thing.
I am looking forward to When Breath Becomes Air. I heard about that book when it came out, and I put it on my list of books that I want to read. It's a little bit different than which is probably why I haven't picked it up yet. So the fact that we're reading it for book club is just extra incentive to actually get to it next year.
Actually, this month's read is making me look forward to reading Alice in Wonderland. It was great to get back to something from the past, childhood. I really enjoyed this month, so I'm really looking forward to rereading Alice in Wonderland and becoming reacquainted with that.
I also am looking forward to Interview with the Vampire. It's one of my favorite books, and I really like the Vampire Chronicles. But for a new read that I'm looking forward to is Only Love Can Break Your Heart.
Awesome. Well, we got a good little cross section. You guys got quite the preview of next year's titles. And if you're new, how we choose the titles is we really try to make it a really great mix of fiction, nonfiction, classics, children, just like something for everyone. So no matter what your book taste is, like you're going to find a book that you love. There's going to be a month that, it's a title that you force on all your friends. Like I have been forcing Jen Lancaster on everyone I know for like 5 years, similar to Shauna Nyquist. Jen Lancaster she's missed the cut for book club like 3 years in a row now. And finally I was like, we have to get her on this no matter what, because she's like the funny version of Shauna. Shauna's funny too, but Jen Lancaster is like, it's awkward because I'm just like in my house laughing or like in the bathtub just like cackling. And like my neighbors probably think I'm crazy because it's that funny. And I'm not someone that typically think books are that like comical, So anyway, if you're really excited about that, if you haven't read anything by Jen Lancaster, she's amazing. So let's see. Let's see. All right, we'll jump right in. What was your experience reading Anne of Green Gables? And, if you read it as a child, like what was it like for you reading it this time around? So for me, I did read it as a child, and what I was obsessed with when I was a kid, my all-time favorite show was Avonlea on the Disney Channel. You guys will have to tell me if any of you watch this. I remember growing up, the worst thing in my life was not the worst thing, but one of the worst things was when it was Monday Night Football, because my dad always took over the TV, and we only had one TV in the house, and I could not watch Avonlea on Monday nights, and I would be just devastated because I lived for that show, and I really want to buy like the DVD set of the show because it won a bunch of Emmys. I mean, it's just like an iconic show that really made me fall in love with like Anne's world. And I think honestly, like revisiting Anne this year, I'm kind of realizing that this whole seasonal living thing that is kind of the foundation of Paper Glam took root like really, really young. And I think part of it was that show Avonlea, because they do seasonal living really, really well. Before that producer, I forget his first name, it's like Sullivan is his last name, did the Avonlea series. He did like Anne's whole life, so all of the Anne books. And I haven't seen that movie yet, so I'm interested if anyone has seen the Sullivan version of Anne of Green Gables. But of course I loved it. I mean, it's a classic. Like it's hard to rate a classic like 5, right? But yeah, I loved it. I read it straight through. I also listened to Rachel McAdams read Anne of Green Gables. I don't think anyone else could have read it quite as well. She's my all-time favorite actress. And yeah, that was really cool that she chose to read it. So without further rambling, Tabitha, what was your experience of Anne of Green Gables?
Excuse me. I really enjoyed it. I did not read it growing up, but oddly enough, I watched the series, and I don't know which one it was that I watched, but that's when I fell in love with the story and with Anne. So experiencing the book this time, not Audible, but an audio version, but I did the YouTube one for free. And I did enjoy it. I give it, I don't know, it's hard with classics. I want to say 5, but every time I want to give something a 5, I feel like I'm like, like, it's just like, I feel bad. Like, it's not Pride and Prejudice to me, so I can't give anything a 5 because that's just the nerd in me. But I would just say maybe like 4.5. I guess, just because like I like it, I really like it, and when I was listening to it, it just reminded me of the series, and it made me want to go back and watch it because there's just something about Anne and her character that kind of just draws you in, and so much about her and nature, and I don't know, you just fall in love with the character. So I really enjoyed this one, but I'm gonna say 4.5.
So I do enjoy the classics as well. I gave it 4 stars. I read this book when I was either 8 or 9. My mom made me read all the classics before I could ever watch a TV show or a movie. So that included Old Yeller, Little Women, I can't even think. I had to read a lot of Emily Bronte as well as Jane Austen growing up because my mom wouldn't let me read other stuff. So when I reread it, it reminded me of why I fell in love with Anne in the first place, because when I was younger, I really connected to her character like I think all of us did, and it just reminded me of how what we read kind of helps shape us later in life.
Yeah, I actually don't remember reading it as a kid. I do know that my mom has an old chest, and she has all the old Anne books, and she reread them recently. We watched the movie at least twice a year, and I realized that as I'm reading, I already know the lines because they're so close to the Megan Follows version of the TV show. Lisa Marie, I also loved Avonlea, and one year for my birthday, my mom sent me the DVDs, and I just watched them all straight through again. Fantastic show, and even in reading Maud, so many of the characters' names from that book, I feel like they used in the Avonlea series for characters. So it was just a fun thing. If I could give it higher than a 5, I would. But I always related to Anne with her red hair. Nobody ever really called me Carrots, but definitely understood where she was coming from sometimes with that red hair, although I don't hate mine as much as she hated hers. So yeah, I love it. It was so fun to read and see everything. I cry every time Matthew dies. Literally, during the book, during the movie, every time, even if I talk about it. So, yeah, it's just a fantastic story.
I did read this when I was younger. I remember, I don't know how far into the Anne books I got, but I know I got to at least 3, maybe 4. And then after that, I'm not sure. But I associate Anne of Green Gables with 5th grade. I think because we had reading time after recess, that's when I read the bulk of all those books. And so I Green Gables, and then one of my extended family members, I think, owned Sullivan Anne of Green Gables movie. The first one, I'm not sure if she had the second one or not, but so I watched those, and I was like, for at least a whole year of my life, but probably more, just kind of obsessed with Anne of Green Gables. So I don't know, it's hard for me to give it a star rating because I don't know how, but it would be, I mean, I don't know, 4.5, 5 stars, like most everybody else is saying. Yeah, I think I think I'll always enjoy it.
Well, I'm Canadian, so of course I've read it. Of course I've watched it. Of course I love Road to Avonlea. And of course I gave it a 5-star. Excellent book, has not lost its charm after all these years. Love it. I highly recommend it to anyone of any age. It's just good experience, 5-star all the way. Oh, and I think Megan Follows is Canadian too, so there's that.
She is Canadian.
Huh, I'll take that point, thanks.
They actually tried to cast only Canadian people for that series, and they turned down like a lot of like A-list American actors. Like they turned down Ryan Gosling, and he ended up doing like a little guest appearance. And I know they turned down oh my gosh, Margie, help me out. She was in The West Wing. I know you know. Stockyard Channing. So they turned her down, and she was like the wife in The West Wing, the wife of the president. And then she got like a guest spot. So it's really interesting that they like tried. They filmed it like I'm gonna murder it. Cindy, you'll have to help me out. Cavendish or something. They filmed it where Ellen Montgomery wrote, and so like they kept it and they used existing structures for the set. So like it is so authentic. It's insane. It's just, and the production level is like on a level that like we don't even see anymore. So I cannot recommend that series enough.
Yeah, even when reading it now, Anne Shirley 100% is still Megan Follows in my head. Like that's, you know, her the way she carries herself and the way she speaks. It's just, they got it so right.
Yeah, everything about that show. Like I could talk about the show forever because it really, I think one of you guys already said it, but it's like you look back at your life and you see those like formative moments, and that was definitely one for me. And I was actually tracking it down, and I was reading all of the comments about like reviews, because it's kind of an expensive set. It's like $100 because it's, you know, I think 7 or 8 seasons, and people were saying that they went back and watched it as adults, and it just like has held up so well, just like Margie was saying. And like it's just so much better than like kind of like what's on TV now, just because everything so tends to be like action packed and it's not super like family friendly. And also like the production quality is not the same. I mean, obviously it's better technologically now, but as far as like the detail that they put into things back then, like for those types of shows, it's just like on another level. And I'm just all about those authentic details. Anyway. Jana?
So I didn't read it as a kid. Like all my cousins did and stuff. And I was just kind of like, I don't know. I didn't. I wasn't really interested in reading like any of the Anne books. I wasn't like, when the show would come on Disney Channel, I would watch it sometimes and I'd be like, meh, it's okay. It's super strange. When I was like 5, my favorite show was Hunter. So it just like didn't have like the cop mystery drama or whatever I liked. But I really liked the book. I gave it a 5. When I became older, I really wanted to go back and read like Little Women and Anne of Green Gables and like all of the classics that like little girls traditionally would read. I had read, I think, only Alice in Wonderland as a kid out of like, and like the Little House on the Prairie series. But other than that, I read a lot more like adult novels and stuff from the time I was probably in like 5th grade, like 4th and 5th grade. So I kind of like, I just wasn't interested in it. But I loved it. I would give it a 5.
Awesome. So I couldn't quite find my notes for a second to do the intro, but what's really cool about Anne of Green Gables too is it was like the Harry Potter of 1908. I mean, it got reprinted over and over and over again. I mean, it was like a sensation, which is really cool. And then also kind of tying into the next question, Ellen Montgomery kind of rewrote her own history while she was, you know, writing the Anne books. Let's see, Ellen Montgomery, I forget the exact thing. I have to look at my notes. She, her mother died when she was 2 years old, and her father left her to be raised by super severe Presbyterian grandparents in Cavendish, which is Avonlea. And yeah, she had this kind of also ties into the third question too. You know, she had a kind of a tough life. Her husband like went crazy right after they got married, and she actually did commit suicide at 67, and that came out in 2008. Her granddaughter came out and said that. So she, you know, she was, she had her dark and twisty kind of phase or part of herself, like Shonda Rhimes would say. So it's really interesting to kind of think about her own life and kind of her own preoccupations, for lack of a better word, and experiences, you know, as we read Anne, because I of course didn't know that, and I'm glad I didn't, you know, when I first read Anne of Green Gables. So the second question, why is it important to Anne that everyone spell her name with an E? Because what's interesting about this is, right, it was really important to Ellen Montgomery that Maud was M-A-U-D. So I thought that was kind of a cool question to unpack. And there's some questions about Maud too, and I want to talk about it a little bit. If I forget, somebody remind me. So I don't know about this one. Feel free to take a pass. I want to hear your thoughts. Do you have anything to add to that, Tab?
Just a part from the story about, you know, when Anne starts talking about, you know, how plain just plain old Anne without an E, how it looks on paper, and she didn't like that. And just her interest in wanting to have a different name, her wanting to be Cordelia. Can you please call me Cordelia? So that was the only aspect that I was familiar with in reference to her name, just from reading. I'm not familiar with the author, or maybe why she chose that, but I think I can feel like, okay, well, maybe, I don't know, I'm particular about my name, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I think names are important. I even think the spelling of a name is important, and so like I don't like it, like people spell my name, and it's okay first time until I tell you no, it's Tabitha with an A, not Tabitha with an I. Or I don't like when people shorten my name unless like I'm really close to them. I'm like, well, did you get permission to shorten my name? Please don't just shorten my name. But it's just like a personal tick, I think. So so I can kind of relate where she's talking about, if you're, if I'm Anne with an E. So make sure that that distinction is there, because I don't know, names are important, I think, and people have a personal association with their names. But yeah, that's my rant about that. Because I don't even like when my daughter's name is Ava and someone tried to shorten her name. I'm like, what? Why are you trying to shorten Ava? Like, really? Like, I have a thing against that. Don't try to shorten her name. That's the name her mama gave her. So that's what she should be called.
My mom is like that with Lisa Marie. Like, if people call me Lisa, she does not like it at all. So that's what my mom is.
I'm with her.
I know, and I totally shortened your name. You signed your email one time, Tab, and this was like probably 2 years ago. And I like the cutest thing ever, and I adopted it, so hopefully you don't mind.
It's fine. You are allowed to call me Tab, but you have to have permission.
Ever since that, I was like, that is such a cute nickname. I'm totally going to use it now since you signed your name like that. But I will never shorten someone's name unless like I see them do it first, because like my mom, like LM is fine, but if you call me Lisa, she's like, no. My daughter's name is Lisa Marie, so that's so funny. I kind of related to that to a certain extent, which is why I thought this question was interesting.
Well, I'm Hayden Lee, but I don't go by that, even though it drives my mother nuts. Well, did. And I'm Hayden without a Y, and it drives me crazy when people add Y into my name, because my mother spelled it that way because she thought I was unique. So I completely understand why Anne wants people to add the E onto her N, because your name is who you are. Well, at least that's how I grew up being told. Your name describes you as a person. When someone meets you, your name should tell them who you are.
I kind of love this quirk about Anne, that she's so particular. I also feel like it's one thing that she could control. Like, my name is Anne with an E. She had such a crazy childhood and crazy upbringing, and when she like writes it on the board, when her teacher doesn't write an E, like, it's, her foot in the ground, that this is me and this is who I am. And even if you won't call me Cordelia, I'll dream about it, but that's okay. At least you can add an E onto my name. And I feel like she kind of just owns it her whole life.
Yeah, I agree. I think that her name is her name. She doesn't have anything else. She doesn't come from anything else. So being able to lay claim to, this is my name, and it is like having some control in her life of saying, I may not know much about my life. I may not have had a great life, but I have this name, and it is, and this is what I want it to be, and this is what I want you to know me as.
I think it speaks to Anne's personality, really. I think that because she's such a romantic at heart, I think that E just kind of was different and romanticized her name a little bit for her. And I think that, she's just a quirky little girl, and I think that's just part of her personality. And I think it, taking into consideration everything everybody else said about, her upbringing, and she owns it. I agree with that too, but I just think it's her personality. It's Anne with an E, and that's how you should spell it.
I think my students would say she's got the E because she's extra, but Tabitha's laughing now, right? But yeah, I mean, she's definitely, it's like her identity, and she's in the middle of like shaping her identity, so she's choosing to shape it that way, right? Like, because my name, like Lisa Marie and Hayden, I have my name's Jana Ray, and my brother's Teddy Lee, and by default, Ray ends up my middle name on all documents, but my parents intended it being my full name. They just couldn't come up with a middle name. So everyone in my family calls me Jana Ray. But most people who just like at school and stuff, they would just call me Jana. But I sign my name Jana Ray on everything. And then and when I make name tags at conferences, and then people who work with me are like, wait, that's your name? And I'm like, yeah. But I really don't care either way. And I have my best friend from high school calls me J Ray, and I'm fine with that too. And because it's Jana, a lot of I've been called my dance teacher of 4 years, my senior year, still called me Jana. She so I just kind of got I don't care. I've been called Jason by a Starbucks worker with my name spelled right on the cup. So I'm just kind of you call me and it's got a J at the front, I'm probably gonna come and answer to you. But my brother's a lot more particular, because even though he's Teddy Lee as his first name, he does not want to be called that. He wants to be Ted or Teddy, but no Teddy Lee. And if you tell people his full name, he gets super upset. So I totally outed him, but at least I didn't say his middle name, because then he'd be not happy with me.
Is your family from the South, Jana?
My grandpa's family, way, way back, and my grandpa's name was Teddy Lee, but my parents named me after the deckhand on a deep sea fishing trip, my first name. And they just kind of wanted it to go with my brother's name, and my brother's named after my grandpa, so he has the same full name as my grandpa. But my mom and my dad were both born in Minnesota.
Interesting. I just asked because I know Hayden's from the South, and then my dad's family is all from the South. So my name is Lisa Marie Ann. My middle name is Ann, and growing up, my family would call me Lisa Marie Ann until I was okay, I have to draw the name at 2 names, to draw the line at 2 names. I don't need 3 names. That is extra, So.
Yeah, I think it's a super farm thing, because my grandpa's family, when they did live in the South, they left because they were bootleggers. But I don't we don't have any family left that I know of out there.
Interesting. I thought I would ask. People ask me if my name is Southern all the time, and I mean, I don't know. I guess. So I totally lost. I have my book all type awesomely tabbed, and I have a quote that goes along with the second one. So I'm gonna go at the end because I just took my finger out of the book and now I can't find it. But the third question is: Anne is an inherently happy character obsessed with tragedy. Discuss Anne's preoccupation with tragedy and melodrama and its contribution to the book's narrative. So I thought Anne's personality was so fascinating because she was just so incredibly alive, and I don't know if that was because she had experienced so much and not necessarily good things from a young age, but I don't know, the Bible verse, blessed are those who are poor in spirit, or something, because theirs is the kingdom of God. And I don't know, that Anne just brought that verse to mind for me, but I would love your thoughts on it. And just I'm curious. I need to learn more about Maud's life too, because she has a lot of journals, and I feel like those would be really fascinating along these same lines. What do you think, Tabitha?
I don't know. I didn't think too deeply about that part of her character, but I do think that kind of would draw me in to her, because there was always, I don't know, I guess there was always something about her. Nothing, there was never anything simple. Everything was either really heightened, even if she's her, or her appearance, or the way she felt about her appearance, or the way she would speak, not using normal words, deciding to use huge words. Everything seemed to be like an explosion, very heightened. So I felt like that was part of her character that kind of drew you in, and you can kind of, in such a simple setting that the book takes place, and you can just see that she's this force in a simple town. And so I think that kind of like, she's the center of the story, like just her personality in this really simple place just ends up being so fascinating and ends up being an explosion and a force. So I like that about the character, and I think that's really what drew me in to her and her story, and then to see how her personality would would interact with all of the other personalities who seemed very simple. But yeah, I haven't thought about it beyond just that aspect.
Okay, I found the quote. Hopefully you don't mind that that I'm interjecting, Hayden, but it's at the very beginning of 22 here, chapter 22, and it says, "For Anne to take things calmly would have been to change her nature. The pleasures and pains of life came to her with trembled intensity. Marilla felt this and was vaguely troubled over it, realizing that the ups and downs of existence would probably bear hardly on this impulsive soul, and not sufficiently understanding that the equally great capacity for delight might more than compensate." That was quite the sentence, wasn't it? I love that quote. It made me think a lot about that, and a lot about like the depth of experience. And there's a lot that says that tragedy brings with it a depth of experience that allows you also to experience the highs much more deeply. And I was thinking about something I read about Rick Warren, I think he still has the #1 fastest growing church in the country. Margie might know better, but he was saying that for senior staff members, he only hires people who have been through like a significant amount of tragedy, because that depth of experience lends itself so well to ministry and also experiencing the abundance of life in Christ, which I thought was really interesting. Anyway, just things that I was thinking about. Hayden, how about you? Thank you for letting me interject.
I felt like Anne was obsessed with tragedy, even though she's such a bright character, because she had such a hard life. Like, I can't even imagine growing up like that. And when you lose someone at a young age, I lost my grandfather and we were very close when I was younger. Death is this mysterious thing that you try to romanticize because you don't know how to deal with the grief of everything that you've gone through, whether it's the tragedy that she faced living in the orphanage and then being given up several times, or when she lost I'm sorry, I got a little emotional thinking about when Matthew dies. When, all those things shaped her, and I think she used her positivity to try to make the world brighter, because she's already seen the darkness and she didn't want the people that she loved to see the darkness. She wanted them to see the good in everything. And that's what made me kind of fall in love with her character as a child and made me remember why I loved her in the first place.
I appreciate what all Anne went through as a child, and that she still kept her life and her imagination. And Marilla and Matthew say it at the end, like, such a good mistake that she came, because she saved them in a sense of like brought so much life to both of them, and to the whole town and the people around her. And even if you watch the Avonlea series, you can totally see Anne's influence, like in all of those characters, whether that was on purpose or not. But she just brought this character in life, and I think she loved the story, and she loved the idea that things could be dramatic, even if her life in Green Gables wasn't always super dramatic. It was that, like, there's so much out there, and there's so much to see and so much to do and so much to read about and experience. And she had this like fervor for life that we could probably all benefit from in one way or another.
I think a lot of this comes down to, like Cindy said, it's a romantic, and like Tabitha said, like to the extreme, everything is either or the best thing ever. You read about, like, in literature, that once kids like can act out, that means that, like, acting out is a way of like showing that they're comfortable with you. I don't mean in like getting in trouble, but like maybe they're always really every woman they're horrible to you or something. But like Anne wasn't like that, but because she had experienced all of this tragedy in her life, I don't think she was in an environment before she got to Avonlea where she could like express it. And so I think like play acting at all the tragedy helps her to kind of like not only deal with some of the stuff that she had to deal with before she got there, but also just like she's finally safe. You know, she's in this home and keep her, and it's like she's learning and she's got friends, and so to be the caretaker of all these babies, and like she can actually like be herself and express herself, and just have fun doing it and not worry that like somebody will see her doing it and like trouble to her because she's not taking care of the baby or whatever. So I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons for it, but I think just the fact that she is so romantic and she loves stories. One of the, like every story has conflict and tragedy, and so I think that's a lot of it is just her love for stories and acting them out.
Cindy, you're skipping, right? Okay. So I just want to make sure I didn't jump. I think that a lot of like what has already been said, that it's just like her way of like getting out, and she couldn't really get out that stuff before because she wasn't really seen or noticed in like an orphanage or when she's essentially like the nanny. But I think what's really sad to me about this like juxtaposition is that as I was reading, especially because I haven't read it before, as you know, when I was a kid, I kept thinking like if there was a student like this or a child like this nowadays, people would say, or not if, but when there are students like this and children like this, people are like, the person's manic depressive, because she would be like super high and excited, happy, like uncontrollably, but then she would be down weeping and devastated. And it made me wonder like if in today's society, if we just automatically call like this beautiful type of personality, if we automatically just label it something instead of like letting it just be beautiful and kind of like being like, that's who that person is. It made me think of that, like that in some ways society was a little more free that way. And you just be like, oh, that's that precarious person, you know, or she's a strange one, but we like that about her. And, you know, that's just our Anne with an E. So it made me think about that a lot, about the ways that like our society would treat a young child with this kind of personality now versus in a smaller community.
Yeah, very interesting. So this next question is always one of my favorites because I love quotes, and it's always, what is your favorite quote or passage? We do this one every month because I definitely collect quotes. I'm going to go at the end because I have so many that I don't want to take anybody else's. But I will say that this is one of the first books, along with The Great Gatsby, that made me want to be a writer. And I remember when I was little, I used to sit down at my mom's typewriter and like pretend that I was writing. And, you know, I still want to do that. I don't do it much. I did blog quite a bit before I started YouTube, and I would love to get back to it. And I hope to as we start Glad and Glam, the Paper Glam Bible study this fall. But anyway, this when I just read the quality of the writing, it's probably like the only book besides The Great Gatsby that really just like it just made me fall in love with words, and I'm just grateful for that. So anyway, I will share my quote at the end. What did you have one? Oh, you have a scene marked, Tabitha, right? Sometimes we do, yeah, passage. So take it away.
Sure. So I just have a favorite moment. Like I couldn't pick a favorite quote because like I was really enjoying, and because I'm doing the an audio version, it's really hard. But I was really, like you said, I really enjoyed the way she told the story. She's able to like allow you to really take the time to fall in love with the characters. But my favorite scene is when Anne saves a little girl, and I can't remember her name, but you guys know what I'm talking about. When she was no longer friends with Diana, but then everyone was away at some political thing, and so she comes to save. And because of her, so it's like because of her background, it's like she wasn't allowed, because of that one incident where she wasn't allowed to be Diana's friend anymore, and then the same aspect of her life that caused her to not have the friendship was a part of her life that rekindled the friendship, because if she hadn't had those experiences with the children, and then she would not have known what to do when the little girl got sick. So I just love that she put that part of the story just really stands out to me, that it's like sometimes you might think about a part of your life that it's bad, but then there's a part of it that it's not, and it's good, like to see that turnaround in the story was just so sweet to me. And I just like that she has like so many small, it seems like very simple moments, but they're so big, because I think it's just about relationships, and her relationship with how Diane, and when they got to be friends again, and just how beautiful that was. So that's like my favorite moment in the book. So I just wanted to talk about a moment versus a quote, because it's just so many, and I couldn't just pick one.
I think Hayden's skipping, so.
Oh, got it. Sorry, missed that. I think there were so many that I like highlighted and wrote down, because they were just taken straight from the book into the movie, and that's where my like main experience with this is, and quoting all of these with my mother. But some of my favorites, she says, "It's so easy to be wicked without knowing it, isn't it?" Which I can relate to on a daily basis. And the other one is very hopeful. It's "Isn't it nice to think that tomorrow is a new day with no mistakes in it yet?" And I think when you've had a really crappy day or a really crappy week or whatever, it's nice to look ahead and be like, okay, tomorrow is brand new and there's nothing in it yet, and I can move forward. But all of her, she's just a funny character and has so much imagination and so much life, that it's just so nice to hear her talk, and hear her just ramble about certain things.
Like everybody else, I had so many quotes that stood out to me, but there was one towards the end that stood out the most, and that was, "Next to trying and winning, the best thing is trying and failing." This just struck me because my kids are kind of perfectionists. I don't know how that happened, because I'm not like that at all. But they are perfectionists, but they also expect to get everything right the first time they try it. And so if they don't get it right the first time, they're like, I can't do it. I'm never going to be able to do this thing. And so we're always telling them that, you're not going to be perfect the first time. You're not going to be perfect the second time or the 10th time, but you just, keep doing it. And so I just liked the idea that just doing it is the best thing. Whether you're winning or failing, doing it is the thing that matters.
My favorite quote as well was, "Tomorrow is a new day with no mistakes in it yet." So that's one of my favorite. There was a part that I literally laughed out loud, and it's close to the end of the book when what's her name? Miss Rachel says, it's just a line where she says, "Oh, I declare I'm getting glad to sit down. I've been on my feet all day. 200 pounds is a good bit for 2 feet to carry around. It's a great lesson not to be fat, Marilla. You should appreciate it." I thought that was hilarious, and just a wonderful use of words where Mrs. Rachel, in the sentence prior to that, says, "deposited her substantial person upon the stone bench." Like, what a nice way to say you know, she's a little overweight. So just the language. Yeah, those were, that was my laugh out loud part. And like I said, my favorite quote was that tomorrow's a new day.
I think mine kind of goes with Cindy's first one. And it is, but have you ever noticed one encouraging thing about me, Marilla? I never make the same mistake twice. And so I just really like that. Like, and then she goes on a little bit farther down to say there must be a limit to the mistakes one person can make. And when I get to the end of them, then I'll be through with them. That's a very comforting thought. And I just like that optimism. Like, well, I keep making mistakes, but I never make them twice. And it's got to end sometime. I've got to be like, I'm going to get this. And I also like her constant refrain of like, I'm going to be a good girl from now on. But, you know, it's just so hard when something comes up. Like, she just keeps bringing up that kind of like refrain of like, I'm going to try, but I know I'm going to fail.
I love it. So you guys in the comments, you guys picked such great ones too. One thing that won't surprise you is that I love the seasonal imagery and like all of the seasonal writing in this book. And it's so funny, like growing up, Gatsby and Anne of Green Gables was my two favorite books. And I can't think of any other book that has like this much like just beautiful seasonal, like they always tell you what season it is in both books. And I just think that's so interesting because I never would have put all this together like, you know, when I first read the books. But I'll use the quintessential October quotes because there's two of them. One's the beginning of chapter 16 and one's the beginning of 24. And sidebar, anything that was written or published before 1923 is public domain. So what's awesome is that I can use Gatsby and Anne of Green Gables on stickers. So that's why I don't do a ton of quotes just because I'm really careful with intellectual property, but it's cool that I can make Gatsby and Anne into quotes. So, or into stickers, excuse me. So this is the one that's all over Pinterest. On my book, it's 119, but it says, October was a beautiful month at Green Gables, when the birches in the hollow turned as golden as sunshine, and the maples behind the orchard were royal crimson, and the wild cherry trees along the lane put on the loveliest shades of dark red and bronzy green, while the fields sunned themselves in aftermath. And reveled in the world of color about her. I'm so glad I live in a world where there are Octobers. It would be terrible if we just skipped from September to November, wouldn't it? And I thought that was so funny for like us planners. That's totally relatable. And then, oh no, did I do it again? I just took my hand out of the other one. But the other one was like such a planner quote. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Either that or I'll have to come back to it. There we go. It was October again, a glorious October, all red and gold, with mellow mornings when the valleys were filled with delicate mists, as if the spirit of autumn had poured them in for the sun to drain. Amethyst, pearl, silver, rose, and smoke blue. The dews were so heavy that the fields glistened like cloth of silver, and there were such heaps of rustling leaves in the hollow of many-stemmed woods to run crisply through. And this is the planner part. Anne drew a long breath of happiness as she sharpened her pencil and arranged her picture cards on her desk. Life was certainly very interesting. So I thought that we could relate to that as a community of planners. You know those moments when you sit down at your desk, you got like your planner all ready to go, and you're just like, oh, all is right with the world. All right, number 5. Oh my gosh, I'm talking your guys' ear off. We're almost at time here at 7. So when Anne is at Queen's College, she thinks all the beyond was hers, with its possibilities lurking rosily in the oncoming years. Each year, a rose of primrose to be woven into an immortal chaplet. And that's 266. How is this message both hopeful and sad? And how do you think Anne's conception of the future changed throughout the book? I thought this question was really interesting because, you know, Anne has these like kind of big city dreams, we'll call it, and then she realized that like her world is really Avonlea. And I've been kind of going through that a little bit, realizing that like my, you know, this was my dream, and it still is, to live in LA and do Paper Glam. This is what I want to do since I was a little girl. And as I've grown older, like Napa is starting to have like that pull on me, especially going through all the fires this past month. So anyway, you guys can feel free to take a pass as always, but I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on that.
I did love this because Anne had such a hard childhood, and so then all of a sudden she gets to Green Gables and things start to go right. It takes a hot minute for that to happen, but she becomes an excellent student and she comes number 1, and then she goes to this Queen's College and she gets this scholarship, and then like life throws her a curveball, and Matthew dies and Marilla is losing her eyesight and she's just kind of left with this burden, and Anne's like, okay, it's my time to step up. Like, things have been going so well. And so that is kind of the story of everyone's life. Like, we go through this thing and we have plans, and then life throws you a curveball, and it's how you react to that that kind of can change your course. And it probably changed her course for the better. Like, she still became an incredible person, and she met the perfect man, and she did all of these things. And yet you wonder, like, it might have been a blessing that Matthew died and you got to stay around Green Gables longer and be more of a part of this. And then she did end up fulfilling a lot of her dreams. So it was just cool to see that, like, when she got to Green Gables, not everything always went correct for her.
I think, Jana, you're up. We had a few passes, unless I am reading wrong.
Well, I think that, like, when she comes to that realization, she's just kind of realizing what she says kind of earlier when she visits with Diana's aunt in the city, and she comes back and she tells Marilla, Marilla, I came to the conclusion, Marilla, that I wasn't born for city life and that I was glad of it. It's nice to be eating ice cream at brilliant restaurants at 11 o'clock at night once in a while, but as a regular thing, I'd rather be in the East Gable at 11, sound asleep, but kind of knowing even in my sleep that the stars were shining outside and that the wind was blowing in the firs across the brook. And then the last line of that chapter is, or the last 2 lines, no, it's the last line, but the best of it all was the coming home. And so I think she, like, had that idea and knew that. And then it's the very next chapter where she goes off to Queens and stuff and starts going. So she's already realized it once before, but I think she, like, kind of solidifies that conclusion and is like, no, what I thought before was right. It's kind of something that was sitting with her all along. And I always have this feeling because we live in the desert, and this is not the city I grew up in. And the city I grew up in is only like 30 minutes away. It's like not that far away, but it really, because there's like a mountain between us, I live like on the other side of the mountain. It is like a completely different world. And it's just, the people are different, and like, it would be just so beautiful to be able to go. Like, I'm very like nostalgic, and I get very like I would have loved for my kids to have gone to like the schools that I went to, and like to have that, like, we're all alumni and we all have like school spirit together and like that kind of stuff. And like we went to the restaurants that I went to as a kid, like the local family restaurants and stuff. So I just think that it's that kind of natural pull, like, back to like what just feels safe and right and true.
Yeah, I love that. And I don't think I highlighted that quote, so I'll have to get it for you. Or if you would type it in the chat for me, I would love that. But that's exactly how I've been feeling. And I kind of have this push-pull between LA and Napa. So that was interesting to read through. There's days when I just want to, Napa's kind of like Stars Hollow, which is why I wanted to get out of it. It's like the, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name, but Oscar Wilde, he said, we always come back home for all the same reasons we left. And it's so true. Like, I thought Napa was so small and suffocating and closed-minded, and people go there and, they stay and they never leave. But then, like, I was driving home last time I went to Napa, and Ed Sheeran, Castle on the Hill, came on, and I just started crying. Like, it was just like, I just wanted to be home, and I wanted to, go to coffee at like our Luke's and, go to our market and just do all the things that I did growing up. And that just seems like that's like real life to me, more than LA is right now sometimes. So anyway, the last question, again, this is kind of a tough one. Feel free to take a pass as always, but I am just like an inspiring writer, I guess. And I would love to know like what qualities in the writing style or story explain like how timeless and universal this novel is, and why Anne is such an enduring character in fiction. It's so interesting that Anne's biggest following is in Japan. Like there's it's kind of like Anne of Green Gables, everything there. They have Anne dish towels. I mean, it's just interesting that, you know, that like all the way kind of across the world, this Anne has had a huge appeal, even in cultures that are different, especially in like the 1900s, right? So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Anyone that wants to throw something out?
Well, like I said, and I've said this multiple times, but I think it always comes back to relationships and the storytelling. Like I feel like it's beautiful storytelling. Like you said, the mentions of nature. It's almost like you want to go to this place. Like, oh, I want to go to Green Gables. It sounds fabulous. Like I want to hang out. I want to walk, and see this beautiful scenery that's being described. But Anne as a character, because I think like there's just so many parts of her that I think some of us can relate to, even if it's the parts of feeling, even if it's not direct, it's still like you can feel like a connection. Like when you've ever felt like you didn't fit in, or when you've ever felt that you weren't loved, or did you ever feel different, or you didn't like the way you looked, or so many different things that you can connect with as a story. But I think I love the fact that she's 11, and I think that it kind of makes you that part of being a child, that I think we're allowed to kind of escape to that world, because she's so into her imagination and she talks about it so often, and she's creating these great pictures and this great imagery and just fun moments. And I just think that some of the story are so simple. They're simple things that we can all relate to. Like you can relate to having dinner and someone special comes over and you screwed it up, and like you can relate to that. Or you can relate to wanting to be, when you go to school and maybe someone picks on you and how angry that makes you feel, or something that wasn't fair happened to you. I don't know, there's just so much. It's so much with all the characters and with all our experiences, but I think they're so simple that we all can like relate to them in some way. I think that we can relate to her, or we can relate to her situation. So I think that's why it kind of sticks. I think because it's so simple. It's so simple, we can all, it's not like so far out of our minds that we can't understand a portion of it. I think it's the simplicity that draws people to it.
Yeah, just to kind of echo what you just said, I think that it is so much about belonging. Every life when they felt like they didn't belong, everybody wants to have somewhere where they can be themselves and feel loved. And for so long, Anne didn't have that, and then she comes to this town, and not only does she win over the people that take her in, but she wins over the town, and she's doing it. She doesn't have to change who she is. They accept her for this.
Uh-oh, I think, did Erica freeze for everyone? Okay, Erica is having a storm. Oh, so sorry, Erica. She told us to tell her if she froze. So, alrighty. I'm sure that what you were sharing was amazing, though. I always love your insights. So I think, let's see. I know there was a lot of passes. I wasn't prepared. Yeah, but thank you, Cindy.
So the writing style that I appreciated was I absolutely loved the imagery. I loved the fact that they would describe it, and I can see it in my mind's eye. The writing style really brought it to life. Now about Anne, I think why this stands a test of time is because she's almost admirable in the way she's able to express herself. The way she kind of spins the story and tells things and describes things, you can't help but empathize with her. You can't help but be there in the moment and get not necessarily caught up in her drama, but like get pulled into her emotion of whatever she's saying. And I think that it's a dynamic personality, and I think that it's human nature to be intrigued by someone like that. So that's part of the writing style that I really appreciated as well. And I think that's why we still talk about her to this day.
I think that the repetition for me, the repetition of like the pattern of the seasons, and just even her pattern of like making a mistake, learning from it, making a mistake, like it's all patterns. There's repetitions of the ideas, the things she says, but they build and they grow and they kind of scaffold on top of each other until she's like, you know, a fully formed adult, more or less. And I think that kind of cyclical nature of the text helps us kind of grow with her and see her as like a real fully developed person. And I think that that's really hard because it can get too tedious in some books when they try to fully develop a character that way, or people can have really underdeveloped characters and become too plot heavy. So I think it has just a great balance of the two, where like her development comes through each little story and then it cycles back to the next little story. And so I think that those patterns are really good, and they follow like the seasons and the cycle of her life and stuff as it moves forward. And just the beauty of the scenery, like I can't remember who went first. Was it Hayden, Margie? Somebody went first. Tabitha was Tabitha. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't even remember. But she said like, we want to go there, right? And there's a Netflix show. It's like a Canadian real estate show. Some of the places are in California. Like one of the episodes is Napa, and it's called What's for Sale with a View. And a lot of them are like on Prince Edward Island or like on the coast over like the Eastern Canadian coast, and it's just so beautiful. And I probably watched like the whole like little set of episodes that's on Netflix maybe a month or two ago, right before we read the book. So all I kept seeing was like all those beautiful houses, and it was just really pretty in general. And I think that beauty is very much conveyed in the text. Like you feel like you want to live there. Like Avonlea is like this special magical place that's beautiful and peaceful and quiet, and everyone can kind of be true to themselves and is accepted. And even when they're not wholly, like, I don't know, not even like, even Matthew's kind of quirky, but everyone kind of just like is like, he's like that old bachelor back there and he lives with his unmarried sister and it's okay. Like it's like everyone's a little quirky and it's okay. And I think that we like that because deep down we're all a little quirky and it's okay.
Just like Stars Hollow and Napa. And maybe where you're from. Maybe where we're all from. It's certainly like that in LA, but it's okay. So that concludes our chat on Anne of Green Gables. I am so excited that you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Next month, I need a new adjective besides excited. I say it like 10 times in every video. But so this coming month, we're reading Cheryl Strayed's, I think this is her third book. Was her follow-up to Wild, and you guys might remember when Wild was like all the craze a couple years ago, and I've had this on my shelf just like burning a hole in it. I picked it up in Portland, which is where Cheryl Strayed is from, and I am just so excited to read it. It's just like an advice column, like her advice column, all compiled into a nice little paperback. So if you're traveling for Thanksgiving, it's nice and portable, and I just feel like it's the perfect book for November, and the title is just perfect. Tiny Beautiful Things, which, you know, I'm kind of always wanting to mining the everyday for tiny beautiful things, and I am excited to see Cheryl Strayed's kind of take on all of that and what advice she gives out too. So I think this is going to be a fun one, especially for those of you that might not. Like, nonfiction is my wheelhouse, as you may know, and I think that this might be one that even if like you tend towards fiction, this will be a fun one, because I read a few. It might be a little bit on the rated R side, so heads up there, but I read a few of them and they were just like comical and cute, and I think you'll really enjoy it. So that's what's up next. Let's see, what else? Oh, we didn't quite talk about Maud. If there is a young adult fictionalized or novelization of Maud Montgomery's life, and I will link it down below if you want to check that out. I started reading it. It wasn't on Audible. If I had Audible, I would have been able to like get through it for sure, but I only got through maybe like a third of it. But I know Margie said she really liked it, so I know we talked about that and didn't kind of circle back. So I'll link that below if I haven't already. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for your loyalty to Paper Glam Book Club. I really hope that our book club grows this next month as we kick off another year of reading together. So thank you guys for everything. You are my soul sisters, and I can't wait to see you the last Thursday in November after Thanksgiving for Tiny Beautiful Things. Until next time, sleep tight.